Right now, in a field west of Warsaw, Poland is building the most expensive airport in its history. $32 billion rising out of farmland. And it is being built for one airline, a carrier most of the world has never flown, a carrier that a few years ago was nearly bankrupt. That airline is Polish Airlines, the flag carrier of Poland. So why is an entire country betting $32 billion on an airline the rest of the world barely notices? The answer is one ruthless decision that saved it from the grave, while almost every airline like it died. None of this makes sense without the airline itself. LOT first took to the air on the 1st of January in 1929, so it's basically older than the Second World War, older than the jet airliner, older than Poland's current borders. The crane on its tail was chosen within months and has never been replaced. A single crane in flight, still there today. The early ambition was huge. In the 1930s, Polish crews flew a test route all the way from Los Angeles back to Warsaw, more than 24,000 kilometers, scouting an Atlantic service the next decade was meant to launch. The network spread fast, from Helsinki in the north to the edge of the Middle East. By 1934, the airline had a modern home at Warsaw's Okęcie Airport, and it was already a founding member of the global airline body, IATA. By the time war broke out, LOT had carried over 200,000 passengers. Then the next decade brought the German invasion. 1939 shut the airline down completely. Its aircraft scattered to Romania, the Baltics, and Britain. The crane vanished from the sky. It returned in 1945, but into a cage. Poland now sat behind the Iron Curtain, and its airline flew only where Moscow allowed. The fleet became Soviet metal. Tupolev jets across Europe. The long Ilyushin Il-62 across the Atlantic, carrying Poles to Toronto, New York, and Chicago, home to one of the largest Polish communities on Earth. That diaspora link would matter enormously later. On paper, a proud flag carrier. In reality, a state instrument flying hardware it did not pick, and it was not immune to the politics around it. When the regime cracked down on the Solidarity movement in 1981, Polish air traffic nearly collapsed, and flights to America were frozen for years. That Soviet hardware also had a deadly flaw. On May 9th of 1987, an Ilyushin IL-62M bound for New York lost an engine minutes after leaving Warsaw and crashed into a forest short of the runway. All 183 people on board were killed. It is still the deadliest accident in Polish aviation history. Investigators traced it to faulty bearings inside the Soviet engine, the same failure that had destroyed another LOT, Ilyushin, 7 years earlier. The message was impossible to ignore. The fleet Poland was forced to fly could not be trusted. So the instant communism fell, LOT ran. In 1989, it became one of the first airlines in the entire region to buy American planes, bringing in the Boeing 767 while its neighbors still flew Soviet jets. Get Western, get modern, get reliable. That single reflex would end up separating the survivors from the dead. This airline also has a habit of surviving things that should end it. The most famous example came on the 1st of November, 2011. A Boeing 767-300ER named Poznań lifts off from Newark for Warsaw. 220 passengers and 11 crew aboard. 4 minutes in, a hydraulic line ruptures. The system that lowers the landing gear bleeds dry. The captain, a quiet veteran named Tadeusz Wrona, makes a cold call, fly the full Atlantic anyway, and burn off the heavy fuel load on the way. For hours, the jet crosses the ocean, knowing its wheels will not come down. Over Warsaw, it circles to burn fuel while crews foam the runway. 2 Polish Air Force F-16s slide alongside to confirm the worst. The gear is up, and it is staying up. Then Wrona lands a wide body on its bare belly and brings it to a stop. 90 seconds later, everyone is off. 231 people, not a single serious injury. It became a national moment, broadcast live across the country. Even Captain Sullenberger, the pilot of the Hudson landing, called to congratulate him. And here is the part almost nobody remembers. The investigation found that one circuit breaker had popped in the cockpit. It controlled the backup method of lowering the gear. Once engineers reset that single switch on the ground, the wheels came down perfectly. The fighter jets, the foam, the belly landing, all of it hung on one tripped switch. This airline survives things that should end it by the width of a fingernail. Hold that thought. Because at that exact moment, the airline itself was doing the same thing. While Wrona was being decorated as a hero, LOT was quietly going bankrupt. Not as a story, as a fact. By 2012, the airline had not made a steady profit in roughly 20 years. It was burning cash, crushed by fuel prices and a weak currency. It went to the Polish government and asked for 1 billion zloty just to keep flying. It received 400 million, around $130 million. A rescue deal where Turkish Airlines would buy a major stake collapsed because a non-European carrier could not legally take control. Brussels opened an investigation into whether the money was even legal. The fleet shrank to around 37 aircraft. Passenger numbers fell to 4.6 million in a single year. To survive, the airline cut into its own body. A new boss, Sebastian Mikos, tore up labor agreements and forced through roughly 100 separate changes. LOT sold off its own maintenance arm. It handed back profitable routes to satisfy Brussels, the price of taking state money. Years of bitter strikes followed. This was not a gentle recovery. It was an airline amputating to stay alive. Now look at what happened to everyone else. In the same era, the flag carrier of Hungary, Malév, was 66 years old and dying the same death. In February 2012, Brussels ruled that Hungary's aid to Malév was illegal and ordered the airline to repay a sum worth close to its entire annual revenue, around $170 million. That order was fatal. Malév stopped flying within weeks and never came back. East Germany's airline Interflug was already gone. The Czechs had built one of the oldest airlines on Earth in 1923, Czech Airlines. And even that one would be hollowed out and swallowed by 2024. Small country, single hub, fleet bleeding cash, then silence. That was the pattern. And LOT was sitting on the exact same list. So why is Malév a museum piece and LOT is breaking records? Part of it was the ruling. LOT's restructuring was allowed to run, while Malév's repayment order was a death sentence. LOT even turned down a second round of aid because its numbers were already recovering. But the rescue is not the real reason it lived. The money was small and nearly handed back. The real reason is the thing almost everyone misses. LOT stopped trying to be a great airline. It chose to become a great junction. Let's look at the map the way LOT learned to. Warsaw sits in a rare seam between Western Europe and the East, between the Atlantic and Asia. Poland also has one of the largest diasporas on Earth, with so many Poles in Chicago that the city became a permanent transatlantic gold mine. So LOT rebuilt its whole purpose around connection. Fly people from dozens of smaller European cities into Warsaw, then load them onto long-haul jets to America and Asia and back. A passenger from a mid-sized city does not care about Warsaw. They care that Warsaw is the cheapest, fastest place to change planes. LOT stopped selling a destination and started selling a transfer. It built that idea into a strategy with a simple name: East meets West. New routes pushed into Asia and the former Soviet republics, into anywhere that could feed traffic through Warsaw. It even tried planting hubs outside Poland, flying long haul out of Budapest. The whole company was being rebuilt around a single question: how do you make the world change planes here? And one aircraft made the math work: the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. LOT became the first airline in all of Europe to fly it, betting its long-haul future on a jet that burns around 20% less fuel than the old Boeing 767. On a connecting fare, that efficiency is the gap between losing money and printing it. The bet was so aggressive, it looked reckless. On the 16th of January, 2013, LOT flew its first transatlantic Dreamliner service, Warsaw to Chicago. That same day, every Boeing 787 on the planet was grounded worldwide over battery fires. LOT's brand new future was stranded in Chicago before finishing one round trip. The jet it had staked everything on was, for months, banned from the sky. And once again, the airline waited out the disaster and kept flying. It worked. The transfer machine worked. Look at the result. In 2024, LOT brought in 9.93 billion zloty, about $2.5 billion, and a net profit of 688.5 million zloty, around $174 million, at a margin above 8%. It carried a record 10.7 million passengers. And the sharpest measure of the comeback is this. At the end of 2021, the airline's equity was minus 734 million zloty, about minus $186 million underwater. By the end of 2024, it was over 1 billion zloty in the black, around $290 million, from a deathbed to record strength in 3 years. And it is still growing. In a single recent year, LOT added 11 new aircraft and opened routes to cities like Tashkent and Riyadh. Its charter business, flying holidaymakers to the sun, has become a quiet profit engine of its own. It is replacing its older regional jets with a fresh order for 40 Airbus A220s and adding still more Dreamliners. The crane is buying, not shrinking. But objectivity is kind of my brand, so now let's be honest about the cracks. 10.7 million passengers is still small for a hub carrier. Lufthansa and Turkish Airlines moved that in a few weeks. The product is dated. LOT's business class trails its rivals badly, with a new cabin only arriving from 2026. Its attempt at a second hub in Budapest was quietly killed. At home, two low-cost giants, Wizz Air and Ryanair, fly the majority of seats in and out of Poland. And in a twist no scriptwriter would dare invent, Wizz Air was founded by a former boss of Malév, the very airline that died. Which brings us back to that field west of Warsaw, and the $32 billion bet rising out of it. It is called the Central Communication Port, a brand new mega airport between Warsaw and the city of Łódź, designed by the firm behind some of the most famous buildings on Earth. Built to handle 34 million passengers in its first phase alone, the combined airport and rail project costs around 131 billion zloty, roughly $32.5 billion, and LOT is the airline meant to fill it. Warsaw's current airport is hemmed in by the city, with a curfew that shuts it down at night. The new one will run 24 hours a day, fed by a high-speed rail network linking Poland's biggest cities in under 100 minutes. On paper, it is the perfect machine for a transfer airline. The entire point of the hub is connection. Poland is openly aiming for 4 in every 10 passengers to be people changing planes, traffic pulled straight from Frankfurt, from London, from Istanbul, and from Dubai. This is the same transfer bet from 2012, blown up to the size of a national dream. And it is fragile. The airport keeps slipping. It was once promised for 2027. It is now not expected before 2032. Poland's own audit office has attacked how the project was run. The land deals under the previous government drew open accusations of corruption. And LOT would have to grow dramatically just to justify a hub built for 34 million people, while today's Warsaw Airport handles only around 18.5 million. If it works, Warsaw joins Frankfurt, Istanbul, and Dubai as one of the places the planet changes planes. If it fails, it becomes the most expensive empty terminal in Europe. The airline that survived a world war, the Soviets, the bond market, and a belly landing, has now tied its future to a runway that is still mostly a field. So here's what I actually believe. LOT did not survive because Poland protected it. It survived because it found a job worth doing, connecting a continent, and refused to be only Poland's airline. It bet on Western jets early, on the Dreamliner hardest, and on one stubborn idea. The world will always need somewhere to change planes, and that somewhere can be Warsaw. Whether it can truly outconnect Istanbul and Frankfurt on the back of an airport that does not exist yet is the open question hanging over European aviation right now. The crane has cheated death by the width of one switch before. It is about to try again at the width of a $30 billion runway. and I guess you know what time it is now. It's time to hear from you on this next question. When that new airport finally opens, would you actually change planes in Warsaw to save real money? Or will you always pick Frankfurt, Istanbul, or Dubai, whatever the price? Be honest in the comments, because that one answer, multiplied by millions of travelers, decides whether this whole bet flies or crashes. That also means I'm at the end of this video. If you want more deep dives into airlines, subscribe to Explained, because as always, it's completely free, but it helps me and my channel grow. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.